Ben Affleck's Batman would never be given a standalone film, becoming one of the major projects that wouldn't be realized from Snyder's DCEU. Instead, the next major Batman project would be a standalone film not connected to Snyder's universe or the new Gunn Safran universe. It would be the start of a new trilogy to be helmed by Matt Reeves, the director behind Cloverfield, Let Me In, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, and War for the Planet of the Apes. After helping to reimagine the Planet of the Apes for a new generation, he would now get to put his stamp onto another legendary film franchise. His vision for the character would be one that was unique in its specifics, not its broad strokes. The film would take inspiration from Christopher Nolan's sense of grounded realism, but stretching that into a heightened sense of hyperrealism mixed with Burton-esque Gothic production design. The trilogy would start not at the beginning, but serve as a story of becoming. He explained in special features for the Blu-ray, quote, "Our Batman has a lot of room to improve, and the journey of this story ends up being a huge awakening for him." End quote. While Nolan's films would be infused with noir elements, this film would be a full-on noir mystery film. Reeves wanted to explore the detective element of the character that he felt had been brushed to the side in the previous live-action attempts. He wanted the world to be infused with Gothic stylings and noir-dressed characters, creating a strong unifying atmosphere that would make the film unique. This would be embedded into the film's characterization of Bruce Wayne, a fallen American prince who's been unable to process the trauma of his parents' death in a coherent way. Instead, Alfred, his surrogate father, who was ill-equipped to take on a child, teaches Bruce the only thing he can, how to fight. This molds Bruce into taking on the Batman persona. He calls himself Vengeance and treats every enemy as if they are Joe Chill. The characterization for Bruce Wayne would also be informed by Kurt Cobain's representation in the Gus Van Sant film Last Days. After listening to Nirvana's Something in the Way while working on the project, Reeves felt that this would help define Bruce's persona. This would be represented in a number of choices with the film's production design and makeup, with the choice of Wayne Tower's crumbling Gothic architecture serving as a haunting museum to the Waynes, with Alfred as its curator and Bruce as the phantom that haunts it. Makeup choices such as the runny black eye paint that they put on Bruce is used to sell this characterization. In the choice of who to cast as Batman, Reeves went in a direction that, surprise surprise, upset some of the fans. He chose Robert Pattinson for the lead role. Some Batman fans and members of the general public were upset by this casting decision, but that was seemingly due to ignorance of his post-Twilight and Harry Potter work. After he rose to prominence with those films, he worked with a number of interesting independent filmmakers, including David Cronenberg, and showcased his great range and talent as an actor, with his performance in the Safdie brothers' 2017 film Good Times convincing Reeves to pursue him for the role. Paul Dano would be cast as the Riddler, Zoe Kravitz would take on the Catwoman, Jeffrey Wright was cast as Jim Gordon, with John Turturro as Falcone, Andy Serkis as Alfred, Colin Farrell as Penguin, and Jamie Lawson as Bella Real would round out the cast. This would continue the Batman live-action tradition of featuring stacked casts. The film crew would feature Reeves, Dylan Clark, and Toby Hefferman as producers. Reeves and Peter Craig were credited as screenwriters, William Hoy and Tyler Nelson as editors, Greg Fraser as cinematographer, and William Chinland as production designer. The film would begin principal photography in January 2020 in London, with the COVID pandemic eventually forcing the shoot to be shut down. During this break, the film's dialect coach, Andrew Jack, died of complications from COVID-19. The film would resume production on September 17th, and the film's long post-production period would see the film ultimately released on March 4th, 2022. The film would be met with both large box office success and positive critical reception. The film made over $772 million on a reported $200 million budget. The positive critical reception focused on the film's performances and noir atmosphere, with critiques levied at the film's pacing and overall long runtime. The fan response was positive as well, with Robert Pattinson's performance being met with praise from the fans. With this context being laid out, let's dig into my thoughts on the film. Let's explore The Batman. To start, I want to praise the cast's performances. Robert Pattinson does a great job in the iconic dual role of Bruce Wayne and Batman. His Bruce performance is aided by the excellent makeup and costuming, which infuses him with such character. Pattinson does a good job of enhancing everything around him to elevate his performance to another level. He does a great job in the action sequences as Batman, as well as the slower detective moments. His chemistry with Zoe Kravitz, Jeffrey Wright, and Andy Serkis is great, with his relationship with those characters fitting in perfectly with the narrative. We get a great look into the flawed psychological state that Bruce is in. We get to see his growth in a way that feels fresh, even if we have seen similar stories told before. We see a Batman that is flawed in a way that provides both humor and excitement as we get to root him on in a way that feels more organic, like anything can happen, which helps to add to the tension of the narrative. Zoe Kravitz gives a great performance, crafting her own unique Catwoman that fits well within this world, but also holds up well against the previous actors who have taken on the iconic role. Her characterization is an interesting foil to Batman and exposes the flaws in his thinking in a way that allows us to see his vulnerability. His growth towards the end of the narrative also allows us to see her vulnerability as well. She has always had a different ethical perspective than Batman, and in this narrative, the clash between the two of them really feels organic and interesting. Jeffrey Wright gives a really good performance as Jim Gordon, with his naivete as to the level of corruption in the city being exposed throughout the narrative, but not in a way that ruins his character. He is shaken, but in a way that reaffirms all the good personality traits of the character. His humor is also a nice touch that releases some of the film's tension. Andy Serkis gives a decent performance as Alfred, but I found his characterization to be weaker this go around. Following Jeremy Irons, Michael Keane, and Michael Gough, his performance feels like a letdown. It's not that his performance or characterization are terrible, as there are interesting things done in this film, but it feels like there is less iconic moments or great lines as with the previous iterations of the character. The best moment between Alfred and Bruce is in the hospital scene, though that gets cut short and doesn't dwell as long on the character's shared vulnerability as it should. Paul Dano gives a disturbing performance, with his character reminiscent of the type of online-obsessed terrorists we see today. The scene where Batman finds his final video is chilling in its realism. It could have been seen as goofy if not executed well, but the simplistic and realistic depiction of what mirrors disturbing real-life events is really well done. Dano's characterization of the Riddler creates a symmetry with Batman that makes their interactions captivating, especially the confrontation at Arkham, which is one of the best scenes in the movie. This allows Batman to see the unintended consequences of his actions, which is only further illustrated at the end of the film. Colin Farrell looks completely transformed in his makeup, and his performance is multi-layered. He's both kind of pathetic and silly, while also being disturbing. You can tell there is a depth of rage and ambition that drives his character, that he has been slowly waiting for his moment, and this film finally paves the way for him to seize it. I love Farrell as an actor, with In Bruges being one of my favorite films of all time. He's great in this as well, and I can't wait to see him in the sequels. The film is really able to get away with a lot for being a PG-13 film, with some really strong suggestive sexuality in a number of scenes. We even get a severed thumb. This feels like a Batman film that is meant more for adults. It's cool that Warner Bros. Was willing to allow Reeves to take it this far. After Batman Returns led to two silly, family-friendly Schumacher Batman films, it's nice to see Reeves get to continue his vision. I love the film's commitment to noir genre elements, its slow detective approach, and its gothic production design. I love that the film takes its time. Some people had a problem with the film's pacing, but I love the fact that it's a slow and deliberate mystery, with so much of our media feeding into our demand to satiate our collectively dwindling attention spans. It's nice to see such a mainstream film take a different track. The gothic production design is beautiful. I especially love the film's decision to have Bruce live in the Wayne Towers, with the museum-like atmosphere of the house matching Bruce's look and characterization fully. I love the new Batcave, and the decision to have Bruce hand-make the material he would use. It gives the film this gritty feel, which matched with its gothic and noir sensibilities, helps the film to carve its own niche in the Batman live-action canon. Bruce's psychological transformation is not complete at the end of the film, but he is now much closer to finding a way to be truly impactful in his role. His monologue at the end of the film is awesome and gives me a lot of hope and excitement for the rest of the trilogy. I haven't spoken much on the film's action sequences because those aren't the focus of the narrative. Instead, the film's noir detective mystery elements take center stage. This is a good way for Reeves to make this film stand out, and I think that the film works because of his commitment to pushing this style to the extreme and allowing us to bask in it for 3 hours. That being said, the car chase is pretty damn cool. The music choices, the direction, the production design, the acting, makeup, costumes, and just about every aspect of the production works towards enhancing the film's atmosphere and tone in a way that is truly impressive given the environment that the film was made under. The COVID-19 restrictions did not hamper the team from realizing its vision for a truly unique Batman film. For that, they should be proud. While I haven't watched this film as much, and its relative newness in the canon makes it harder to definitively say where it will be ranked in my personal list, I do know that I really like the film. Batman Returns, The Dark Knight, and Mask of the Phantasm are locks amongst my personal favorites, but the Batman is not far behind from joining them. I can't wait to see what Matt Reeves and his team come up with next. Thank you all so much for watching my series on Batman and film. This will conclude the series for now, but stick around my channel to talk with me about all other kinds of films. See you next time.